Let's find out what the news has in store for us this week. Copilot first, as usual. As we know, owned by Microsoft. So we'll see where they're trying to direct us to look. Top UK news stories for the past 7 days. Politics and public accountability is up at the top again. It was last week and has been for the last few weeks. Several alternative outlets highlighted renewed attention on UK political figures' historical associations with Jeffrey Epstein, following fresh investigative links and public pressure for transparency. This topic has been amplified by independent platforms that frequently challenge establishment narratives. As you may have seen in the mainstream media, and I would assume it's in the mainstream media. I wouldn't know for sure because I don't partake of the mainstream. But I'm almost 100% positive that everybody will know that Andrew had been called in for questioning, and that was arrest number 1. And arrest number 2 was Peter Mandelson has been called in for questioning. I'm unsure what the ramifications of that mean. I have seen different accounts from different countries where they're shouting about the fact that with the Epstein drop of all the information, that out of all of the people that have been implicated, only 2 have been arrested and they've been in the UK. I'm almost certain that one other person in a different country has been arrested as well. But America is tallying up the fact that there have been no arrests on that side of the water. So it'll be interesting to keep an eye on that. Arrests don't mean charged. So our Andrew may well have been arrested, but he hasn't been charged as far as I'm aware yet. And our Mandelson may have been arrested, but hasn't been charged as far as I'm aware yet. So we'll keep an eye on it and we'll see what's going on. And both of them have been arrested on inappropriate actions while in office, while holding office. So not for any of the nasty things that we did find out in the Epstein files. Justice, policing and civil liberties. Police arrest of Peter Mandelson sparks debate on political misconduct. Alternative media has been covering the arrest of Peter Mandelson over alleged leaks connected to Epstein. Independent outlets have been examining the broader implications for political accountability and institutional transparency. I brought to you a while ago about the World Economic Forum and the fact that they're not elected. They haven't been put in place by us, the public. So they've taken it upon themselves to be an authority. And I saw something on social media which tickled me a little. And it was Klaus Schwab, who is one of the faces of the World Economic Forum, saying that we as citizens need to get used to transparency. We need to, like it or lump it, we have to get used to transparency. And the way he was putting it across, it was like they're expecting us to be completely transparent. This is the way of the new world. This is how it is, complete transparency. And I did post, I did reply to the post, because it was on X, and say, well, that's great, because that means that we get complete transparency from you as well. If the world is moving into a state of complete transparency, then that isn't just the citizens of the world. That is the people who deem themselves the elites. We want complete transparency from them. And I think it was when he was talking about transparency, I think he was really pushing the digital ID agenda. And that's why, facial recognition technology is so important, complete transparency. Well, if that's the way they're going, then they need to lead by example, and everything should be transparent. I think everything when it comes to politics should be transparent. I think we should know the brass tacks of all of the terrible things as well as all the good things. But as we know, the DSMA doesn't allow that form of transparency, so I'm not sure how he gets around things like that. So political accountability and institutional transparency, wouldn't that be nice? Not sure it's going to happen, but wouldn't it be nice? International affairs with UK implications. UK foreign policy questioned amid Mexico cartel crisis. Some UK alternative platforms have been discussing the geopolitical implications of Mexico deploying troops after the killing of cartel leader El Mencho, focusing on how UK foreign policy and security partnerships intersect with global organised crime. So how UK foreign policy, that's easy for me to say, and security partnerships intersect with global organised crime. Well, that could be our version of the CIA. And I know that Britain wants their own federal kind of the FBI of the UK. It would be interesting to see what that's, to dig a little bit more to see what that's about. But from a health and wellbeing point of view, it's not something that I would probably research in depth. Media and democracy. Growing interest in alternative news sources. Yes, we have a growing interest in alternative news sources. A number of independent outlets have been reporting on the public's increasing shift away from legacy media towards alternative platforms, highlighting concerns about media concentration, bias, and the need for diverse perspectives. Well, we don't believe a word that comes out of the mainstream media, or as Copilot has put it, legacy media. We don't believe a word. We don't trust them. We know that they're censored. So it's not surprising at all that there's growing interest in alternative news sources. I mean, I specifically, when I go through AI for the news for us each week, ask them not to include mainstream media because we don't want the slop that we're fed. We would like to know what everybody else is saying. Political commentary and analysis. Left-wing and centrist alternative outlets spotlight economic inequality. Platforms such as Novara Media, The Canary and Byline Times have been publishing commentary on the UK's widening wealth gap, austerity impacts, and the political narrative shaping public debate. These outlets are part of the UK's established alternative media ecosystem. So we have an established alternative media. We're not rogue. Okay. So UK's widening wealth gap. Wasn't it a few months ago that the rich were leaving the UK? Austerity impacts and the political narrative shaping public debate. Well, from a health and wellbeing point of view, the widening wealth gap, we've already, if you haven't seen it already, I've done a piece on poverty, child poverty in the UK. That's up on YouTube. Do give it a listen. It's quite upsetting. I'll warn you now, give you a little bit of a warning. It's quite upsetting. And the government's inaction when it comes to child poverty, even though they would have you believe the 2-child benefit cap has been lifted, but that's all they've done. They haven't done anything else. And when I did the video about that, I showed you all the information that if just that was taken away and the benefit cap was left, that there would be very little movement in child poverty before 2030. It's worth having a look at that video. So they're the top news stories from Copilot. Okay, let's ask Claude. Claude, we know, goes into a much more in-depth search. He has a tendency to really kind of expand much more than Copilot does. Top again. Political scandal and press freedom. Labour think tank investigation. Labour Together, connected to the UK government, paid PR firm APCO worldwide £30,000 to investigate journalists, including declassified UK's John McEvoy, raising serious press freedom concerns. It does beg the question why they would feel the need to investigate alternative journalists. Would it perhaps have something to do with the fact that they're unearthing truths that Labour don't want them to unearth? Declassified wins Parliament access. After a 7-month battle, Declassified UK won the right to report from Parliament after officials initially rejected their press pass application, inciting the particular standpoint of their coverage. Again, the truth. Declassified UK, if you haven't heard of them, they are really worth a follow. They're a great outlet. You will get a lot of enlightenment from Declassified UK. They were the ones that covered as far as I'm aware, I'm sure it was Declassified UK, covered the movements of our troops out of Cyprus over Gaza and really put the pressure on the Labour Party over our involvement in the genocide and called the Labour Party out, called Keir Starmer out directly. So that's when you know why they're trying to keep them silent, while they're paying PR firms to dig up dirt if they can find it, and why they were trying to keep them out of Parliament. Morgan McSweeney resigns. Well, we know this because we had this last week, didn't we? Keir Starmer's chief strategist, Morgan McSweeney, resigned following revelations about his role and the appointment of Peter Mandelson as US ambassador. So we had that. We've already had that covered. Jeffrey Epstein files revelations. Steve Bannon Brexit connection. Newly released messages between Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein reveal how Bannon worked with Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage to overthrow Theresa May during the 2018 Brexit crisis. Surprise, surprise. Boris Johnson, who is calling for us to send troops to Ukraine, not in a peaceful manner. That Boris Johnson, that was an absolute farce over the COVID debacle. That Boris Johnson. So that would be right up there with Mandelson and McSweeney conspiring to have Mr. Corbyn removed from Labour and disgraced. Prince Andrew evidence. Key emails in the Epstein files, first revealed by Byline Times, add weight to Virginia Giuffre's claims that she was raped by Prince Andrew when she was 17. I can hear the argument now over the Virginia Giuffre age of consent. She was 17. So the fact that it was revealed by Byline Times, it does add weight to her claims. Unfortunately, she unalived herself. Evidently, allegedly. I'm not sure whether anything will come from that. There are people who believe that she didn't commit suicide, but her family have said that she was in quite a desperate place and they are accepting of the fact that she possibly did. Peter Thiel, Epstein links. A former Israeli prime minister described Peter Thiel and Jeffrey Epstein as owners of a venture fund, with emails revealing how Thiel cultivated Epstein as a business partner. Peter Thiel is the man who's responsible for Palantir. Palantir have access to all of our National Health Service data. And there is a massive outcry over that in the UK at the moment. Not just the fact that he has access to our National Health Service data, it's been outsourced to him and didn't go up for tender to any other organisation, but also the fact that he's linked in the Epstein files. So justifiably annoyed. UK-Israeli relations. Dual nationals in IDF declassified, obtained and published data on UK nationals serving in the Israeli Defence Forces for the first time, with leaked documents exposing concerns within Israel's Ministry of Justice. Dual nationals in the IDF. So people who have British and Israeli identity in this country have been trotting off to Israel to serve in the IDF. Ministry of Defence Israeli tech deal. Britain's Ministry of Defence signed a deal worth millions with technology that may have been battle tested by Israel, though officials wouldn't confirm. Now that's from Declassified UK. There is a petition at the moment that is reaching the required amount of signatures to be debated in Parliament. And it's a petition that is looking at the Israeli influence in our UK politics. I'll put a link to it in the notes so that you can go and sign it. Please do sign it. This is really important for Israel to have any form of coercive influence in our UK politics, considering they are deemed probably nearly worldwide as a pariah state, is unacceptable. So anything that Israel has its fingers in, we want to know about, because it's unacceptable to have genocidal maniacs as part of our political scene. It's unacceptable to have genocidal maniacs as part of our everyday scene. US military presence. Hidden US bases. The US military owns 22 sites in Britain with a replacement value of $15.6 billion, larger than previously believed and more than UK governments have told Parliament. That was found out by Nuclear News. That's a new one on me. I haven't seen them. I'll dig them out and have a look and see what else they have to say. That's insane. That the governments haven't told Parliament. The UK governments have not told them. So how can that be? Oh, I will look into it. Not from a health and wellbeing point of view, from a nosy bugger point of view. Reform UK and far right. Reform climate policies. Byline Times investigated the projected impact of Reform UK's climate policies amid concerns about the party's surging poll numbers. Climate policies, we mentioned last week that I'm not a proponent of a climate crisis. We're in a cooling period. We're coming out of a cooling period, admittedly so, but it has been the coolest the planet has been over its lifespan. Russian oil sanctions. Russian oil tankers worth $100 million continue to pass through the English Channel with apparent impunity, part of a shadow fleet defying Western sanctions. Good on them. Good on them. Why not? I mean, I just think that the UK siding with Israel, siding with the US, it just feels like we're on completely the wrong side of history. I would suggest that it might be nice to open talks with Russia, to have discussions with Russia, and to keep our options open rather than blinkered and blindly walking in the foot of people that want wars. From what I can tell, from what I've seen, Putin isn't interested in war. So, yeah, let them with their oil going through the English Channel. I don't have a problem with that. Obviously, government will have, but I don't. Your party conference, Progressive Politics, your party held its inaugural conference in Liverpool with 2,500 members debating policies through direct democracy, representing a challenge to Labour from the left. Well, it doesn't matter who's in power. They'll all have to bow down to the overlords. So they may well be debating politics and policy through direct democracy, but that democracy will probably just disappear as if they got in power. Just like the democracy of Labour disappeared when they got in power. None of their manifesto was met. And all the things and actions that they've taken so far weren't part of their manifesto and have all been dumped upon us with you've got nothing to say about it, so we're just going to do it policy. That seems to be Labour at the moment. And I'm sure that's coming from the big wigs too. Okay, so that was Claude. And we will go and ask Grok the same question. So, top of the list, Epstein-linked scandals rocking British establishment, high-profile arrests and probes tied to Jeffrey Epstein files have dominated alternative discussions. So we have the Prince Andrew one again. Referred to as Andrew Mountbatten Windsor in some reports, was arrested around February the 19th with police searches at his home concluding shortly after. Calls have grown for investigations, including potential treason angles from some commentators. If you sell out your country, I think that's supposed to be the definition of treason, isn't it? Peter Mandelson, former UK ambassador to the US and Labour peer, was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office linked to Epstein allegations, then released on bail. His lawyers claimed the arrest stemmed from baseless suggestions he planned to flee. This has fueled outrage over elite accountability, with polls showing declining monarchy support and Labour infighting. Grok always gives you a little bit more information than the other two, so we get a little bit more about the situation. So Prince Andrew and Mandelson Epstein connections fallout. Broader Epstein file releases continue to implicate British figures, with ex-users and independent voices highlighting police actions, parliamentary probes, and public fury. Some frame it as the system finally facing consequences amid monarchy approval ratings, low monarchy approval ratings. I have seen quite a lot of call for the monarchy to be demolished. Immigration, borders, and Ireland-related tensions. Post highlights migrant arrivals via Northern Ireland into Ireland's IPAS system, 228 in one recent week, with warnings of worse under potential Reform UK influence in Britain. Irish unity discussions tie into poverty in areas like West Belfast, blaming British legacy policies. Our our involvement in Ireland, you will know the history of our involvement in Ireland. It's pretty atrocious. Irish unity. So West Belfast, the Irish unity angle. I mean, I still don't understand why we have Northern Ireland, and why, I mean, from an Irish unity point of view, the rest of Ireland could have the Northern Ireland back, surely. Not that I know anything about the political situation when it comes to Northern Ireland. Puberty blocker trial suspension. Good. A controversial UK child puberty blocker trial was suspended after concerns from healthcare regulators. Northern Ireland's health minister had already stepped back, drawing criticism from the First Minister as disgraceful. Alternative sources like GB News have covered this critically in relation to trans treatments and potential legal risks. I'll look into that. I'm not sure. When it says trial suspension, they've said it's paused, it's suspended. So I'm going to look at who the healthcare regulators are. I'm going to look at Northern Ireland's health minister and find out what's going on with this, because that's our children. We're talking about child puberty blocker trials. Not great. I will definitely do a dive into that, and I'll bring you the findings of my research. Defence spending and Ukraine aid. The UK government pledged major increases in defence spending to 2.5 by 2027, the biggest sustained rise since the Cold War, while continuing projects to help Ukraine prepare for NATO membership. Consortium News and similar outlets frame this as ongoing commitment despite domestic priorities like economic stagnation. Well, I would agree. It really annoys me, this situation in Ukraine, because it was Boris Johnson who decided to gallivant over to Ukraine and tell Zelensky not to sign the deal that he had with Russia. And that was the best deal that was available. And it would not have led to this disaster where we've got now. I don't know whether UK feels that they should keep funding Ukraine because of the massive faux pas on behalf of Boris Johnson. I'm not sure. But it really beggars belief. And one of the things that I saw in the alternative media this week is the fact that Zelensky is actually bombing some NATO countries. So he wants to join NATO, but he's been bombing them. Not exactly a hello, let me in, is it? Other notable mentions from alternatives and X discourse. Criticism of Labour Starmer on issues like soft sentencing for offenders, special education need reforms, potentially downgrading support for autistic ADHD children, and economic woes. Calls for probes into historical scandals or interference, the Chagos Island deal U-turn, opposed internally in number 10. And broader gripes about National Health Service priorities, open borders, and woke policies in justice health. So our news this week has really been dominated along a political line more than anything else. And I suppose rightly so, because it's coming up now to the point where our country is being run by dictatorial people, and the general consensus of the public is we've had enough. We've had enough. We're not interested. We don't trust our politicians. We need a massive overhaul of our government generally, and nothing will change unless we as citizens begin to start standing up and saying this is not good enough. And we'll have to follow the chain of command. So you'd have to go to your local MP and say this is not good enough, and see where you go from there. But for now, that's the news for the last 7 days.